Watch him play guitar. The legendary himself, Jim Bedford, Jimmy. Man, you know, here I am right now. Good afternoon. It is Gregory Correa on Harmonics, and I got a very special guest who I consider one of the godfathers of music in the East Bay, San Francisco Bay Area, if not all of California, Mr. Jimmy Bedford. How are you, brother?
Wonderful, man. Great to see you again.
Man, it is so good to see you, man. You're looking good, man. So we're going to be talking about your history, talking about how it all got, how Jimmy Bedford has become Jimmy Bedford, but what he does for so many other people. So let's get right with it. Tell me about when you were young, Elvis and black music.
Well, the radio, that was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You had the radio on, and every song on the radio was great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the black music was actually the driving force, I think, for almost everybody, including Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, the doo-wop groups, it all pulled you in. It had an energy, and it had a beat. A lot of the music in those days before that just didn't have a beat, didn't have a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of brought everybody together, you know.
Mm-hmm. Was it sort of like just because I know they had Krupa and all them and Buddy Rich, was it the beat just wasn't just that nice 4/4, that strong beat, or was it the backbone wasn't right, or?
The snare was heavier in R&B.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Elvis brought it out, Chuck Berry, Little Richard,
Mm-hmm.
Ray Charles,
Mm-hmm.
Ike and Tina Turner.
Ike and Tina, tell me about Ike and Tina Turner.
Well, my grandma lived off of Seminary Avenue.
In Oakland?
Right by 98th Avenue in Oakland. And I used to stay there in the summertime.
Okay.
And my cousin Dave was real young, you know, we played together, but I'd sneak out, I'd go downtown.
7th Street.
Right there on 98th Avenue in Seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I met Lloyd, who used to spin the platters for me. He used to play all these cool songs, even by white guys. Bebop-A-Lula by Gene Vincent. He was playing it all, right?
Yes.
Kind of educating me.
Yes.
But this one evening, I snuck out. I started walking down the sidewalk, and it was so easy to do in those days, right?
Right.
Nobody knew where I was. My folks were on vacation. My grandma didn't know, so I'm walking down the street, and I hear this music coming out of this club. And, wow, it had energy, right?
Right.
So I went and stuck my head in the door, and the bouncer was there, and he said, "I'm sorry, young man, I can't let you go in, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll let you stand right there." And so I stood there, and it was a woman up there with a guitar player. And this was where they had a lot of the black acts would come to Oakland. You know, Showcase Club, you know,
Exactly.
Willie John, people like that. And it was Ike and Tina Turner. And I'll never forget, because it was the old Tina Turner, the one was singing blues. And I think they had one song called "I Think It's Gonna Work Out Fine" that was on the radio. You know, but Ike was playing guitar, and it was from big band, which is a small group. And I just listened for a few minutes and stuff, and God, it was amazing, the energy. And she wasn't even dancing around. She was just up there singing, which she could do, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's kind of what that was. You know, that was that experience that I saw you know, and
How old were you around that time? Like,
I think I was around 11 or 12.
Oh, so you were really young.
Yeah.
No wonder why you couldn't come in, young man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was neat because, I'd stay with my grandma, and, my cousin Dave was there, but like I said, he was real young, so he couldn't go with me, and
Right,
stuff.
right.
I'd do some things and stuff like that. And so that's what that was. I mean, it was just the energy, KDIA Lucky 13. That kind of radio.
That brings all kinds of memories back. So, you did some things on your first time on television, or what was that, TV? You did some TV work out
The
right
first
after
time
that?
I was on TV, and there's a picture actually over there my Aunt Jean took. And my cousin Dave and I sang harmony together. We went on the King Norman talent search.
Wow.
And he had an amusement park, right? And we were on Channel 7, and we won. And so the prize was that we got to perform at the King Norman amusement park.
Now, where would that be?
I think it was in the Contra Costa area. I don't even know
Okay.
because I was only like 11 or 12. But there's a picture of it over there, and it's just, a simple, by those
Standards.
standards, amusement park and stuff. And so my cousin Dave and I sang, for a while, and then I kind of broke away from it.
Right.
And when I went to one of my dad's gigs at the Newark Pavilion, and this was amazing for me. I mean, it was like my dad's band knew those songs. They were Elvis tunes, the Little Richard variety.
Right.
And so my cousin Dave was with me. Anyway, I went up and sang with my dad's band, and God, I couldn't believe it, man. All of a sudden, I don't know where they came from, but there was all kinds of girls, and they started coming toward the stage, and they were like screaming and everything. And so I finished, and I went back in the backstage area, but there were these stairs that went down, and then you went to the exit door.
Okay.
And it was full of these girls. And they got a hold of me, and they started tearing my clothes.
I love it.
And the cops came, the security that was there, and my mom was horrified. That's when I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I want to do this. You know what I mean? It was
Of
really
course.
exciting for me. I went back up on the staging area, and I stood there, and my dad said, "That's enough." And I said, "Oh, Dad, I want to do it again." He said, "No." He said, "When you do something like that,
Just let it go.
that's enough. You were on stage long enough." And and of course,
Was that at that was at the Newark Pavilion, you said?
I'll never forget it. It was
So-
like the Newark Pavilion, and I think it's still
It's still there. Most definitely, it's still there. It's iconic. I mean, it's still there. So what was your setup? What was the setup that you were using back then? When you guitar or
I
just
was
sang?
just singing
Really?
and moving on the stage because my dad had a whole band. He had his guitar player and bass player, but upright bass player, a whole band. The drummer was great. They knew the breaks in the song. They kind of followed me and stuff, and I wasn't playing
You weren't playing guitar either?
at all. I was just up there singing, kind of doing the Elvis thing, and
You whipped it up.
it was, like I say, it was one of those magical moments
In
I'll
your
never
life, right,
forget.
right.
My mom and everything, right? My mom was there, and I think she was kind of surprised. I was kind of surprised because I didn't think anybody would really react that way.
So when did you actually meet Bill Correa? And you did the whole thing with Dwayne Eddy. Tell me about all of that. That's right around in this area. But before we do that, let's talk about Bill Correa, and then I want to talk about when you actually started playing guitar and all that too. But
Well, I was playing guitar during that time, but when I sat in with my dad's band that time, I wasn't. But I did both, because I wanted to use the stage and do the moves and everything. But what happened with Bill Correa was I had a band, And of course I was playing guitar and singing.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a car hop at Gordon's Drive-In in San Leandro,
Mm-hmm.
right there at 150th, right
Okay.
across from Prings,
Okay.
where that was.
Uh-huh.
And
It's gone
never
now,
there
yeah.
anymore.
Right.
And so she was a car hop there, and she knew Bill and his partner Gary, and he was starting dances,
Mm-hmm.
and he was looking for a band. So my
Mhm.
mom said, well, my son plays guitar, he's got a band.
Mm-hmm.
So we auditioned, and we got the gig at Teens and 20s,
Mm-hmm.
which was right down the street here at the Moose Club.
Right.
And it really went over. I mean, it was like there was a line outside to get in every Friday and Saturday night,
Mm-hmm.
and we lucked out. We got the gig, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of good bands at that time, but we kind of had the setup. We had like piano, bass, drums, guitar,
Great
you know,
singer in yourself.
piano.
Mm-hmm.
So when you looked at having, you know, the piano, bass, drums,
Yeah, the
guitar,
true rhythm section.
singing, and we sang harmonies, there weren't a lot of bands that were going that far. And I was one of the youngest guys in the band, but some of the older guys in the band said, yeah, we need to do some of these songs with
Mm-hmm.
background vocals and stuff.
Mhm.
So we were pretty, I think, well established after we played for Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And we started, you know, playing at different gigs, like the Pavilion, backing up doo-wop groups like the Five Superiors.
Mm-hmm.
Five guys would be up there doing all these routines, and they were always looking for young guys that played the music the way they wanted it.
All right. And you were that band.
And we played like the stuff, you know. There was no, you know, go out there and just play a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Played the songs so these guys could do the show. So they took us with them, and we were playing, you know, all these different halls at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Spanish Hall, the IDES. you
The
know,
IDS
Vets
hall in Hayward? Or
Yeah.
was it all different ones?
It
that
was
you...
the IDES.
in Hayward.
In Hayward.
On
But there
Foothill.
was a Spanish Hall down San Leandro.
Mhm.
And, you know, so the scene was really, really,
Opening up.
every weekend there was music. I mean, it just... you
Not
know.
like it is today. You know, tell me about the Garden of Allah.
Well, that was a great gig. I actually took that gig and left my band, and then I wound up taking a couple of guys from my band with me.
Mm-hmm.
This guy named Chuck Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
he had the Garden of Allah,
Mm-hmm.
and Blackjack Wayne, his brother, had the Dream Bowl in Napa. And they had all these big names come out.
Right.
And Tom Donahue from KYA had the record hop every Friday night.
Wow.
And Saturday night was country night. So there were people that Chuck would come out with, like, that nobody could get, like Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'd come out here, stay at the bungalows in the back.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
then they would go to the Dream Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
to Jack's place.
In
and-
Napa.
In Napa. And they had a TV show every Saturday called The Blackjack Wayne Show. And they publicized both places. And I was on that TV show every Saturday.
Do you have any tapes of that?
I don't.
That would be priceless if
I
you did.
wish I did.
So you played with Gene Vincent.
Well, what happened was Gene Vincent was, I couldn't believe it. I went into the bar area to ask Chuck a question, and he said, Jim, you're not supposed to be back here. And I goes, no, I know, I want to ask you a question, Chuck. And then I looked, and I said, wait a minute, Chuck, who's that behind the bar? Is that Gene Vincent? He said, yeah. And he's drinking me out of house at home. Because Gene Vincent would go behind the bar
And take the drink.
and be a bartender and be drinking, right? And his wife would hang out in the dance hall when we were playing, because we were all, you know, the young guys were coming in there and the young girls, and she would hang out with some of the young girls. And Gene Vincent got up on the stage and sat in with the band.
Wow. What an amazing thing that is.
Well, I didn't know that he had that brace on his leg because he was crippled, you know. And he got up. It wasn't the same Gene Vincent I was used to because he was trying to go country, but he got up there and sang some rock stuff. And this guy, Billy Joe Tucker, came up and sat in on guitar with Gene and the band. And it was just neat to see those kind of people in Niles. Can you imagine that?
Yes.
You know, but Donahue had all these people that had top 40 hits come out there on Friday night.
I miss Tom Donahue. He was such a force back in the day. Tell me about Jan and Dean and Joe Simon and Mel and Jerry.
Well, what happened was started working for different agencies. And so I got a chance to be on the bill with Jan and Dean at the Vets Hall in Oakland. And when I was with Joe Simon, God, what a great talent that guy was. It was at Spanish Hall in San Leandro. So, you know, Mel and Jerry had a Warner Brothers contract, and he had a song called Double Whammy that was on the radio. And Jerry went on, by the way, to write for the Jacksons. But at that time, they were a duo, and they picked a band. They would pick somebody from each band and put a core band together, and I was in that core band for that.
Wow.
So I'm doing that, and then I'm running off to another band that's playing at Vets Hall to get up and sing a couple of songs with, you know, the people that were
playing
sponsoring that one. So that was just another gig, and I didn't really have a manager.
So you were actually managing yourselves,
I was kind
or
of
hustling?
doing that. It was word of mouth, though. You know, once you get in,
You just
and then people find out, and that's what Bill Quarry did when we played with Dwayne Eddy. They would get the local acts so that they didn't have to pay the money to have other supporting acts come in
Smart.
to town.
And there was great talent here.
Yeah, there was. So we got a chance to be with Dwayne Eddy, you know. You know, that was my regular band. So I'm going from my regular band
To other
to
bands.
the Garden Band to the other band with Mel and Jerry to, you know, just all over the place.
Hopping, man.
I was hopping, man.
So what about the Army and the Statue of Liberty and then the Bavarian talent competition in Times Square? What were you doing? Were you in the Army?
I was
Or
in the Army for 3 years. They were going to draft me, and my dad said, you know, I'm getting tired of having you get caught underage. I would sneak into nightclubs and sit in with the band and stuff. And so my dad said, you better get the obligation out of the way. So I did that. They said that if I spent 36 months instead of 24, I didn't have to go in to the summer camp program for the reserves for the next 2 years after that. I did not want to do that. So I spent almost 3 years, and while I was in a group called the We Three, and we were in the Army together. So we'd won a bunch of talent levels in our division and brigades and stuff, and we went to New York for the finals, and it was at Governor's Island, and we were there, 3 guys from San Leandro,
Wow.
and Times Square, and I'm going, oh my God, you know, this is really a magical moment.
In your life, of course.
Never saw Times Square, you know, but on television, and but then they broke us up. I got sent to Germany, and I was there for 2 years in the tank outfit that Elvis had been in.
Same tank outfit.
Same tank outfit.
Wow.
I didn't volunteer for it.
They just
I
took
don't
you.
even know how I wound up there, but it was rough over there, you know. But I met this German kid, Gunter Hutz, 19 years old, spoke 5 languages. And he saw me play guitar and sing and do a bunch of wild stuff. I was playing, with my guitar behind my neck and, between my legs and everything. And playing fast wasn't really that much, I would say, it wasn't that much a part of what people saw.
Right.
And because I had my dad's people showing me stuff, I was kind of showy. So I got on that German Bavarian talent competition, and I won.
Wow.
Over there, but I didn't speak the language, and I was kind of embarrassed because I went on German radio and television, and he was there talking, but all I knew how to say was thank you very much and good night and good morning and I love you.
There you go. Hey, all you need is love, right?
That's it. So, but he would tell
Any films of that?
Huh?
Do you have any films of that?
No. I was over there. I didn't have anything. I mean...
You're a GI.
I was a GI. I mean, it was all up to them. But the one thing he did for me before I left, he gave me this album of pictures. And on the top of the album, it's signed by Elvis Presley, because Elvis was his neighbor. Elvis lived in Bad Nauheim, off post with his family. So I got all these rare pictures of Elvis. The only thing that I regret is that I didn't stay in touch, because he was doing so much for me. I'd stay at his hotel. He owned a hotel with his family.
Wow, too bad you didn't meet up with him years later or anything.
Oh, geez.
Do you still have the book with Elvis?
I do.
Excellent. That's a prize. That's a historical piece. That's a musical historical piece.
Yeah. He'd signed the stuff, and it was in the 50s, and you see Elvis and it doesn't, it just doesn't ring in your mind that he could be playing football and he's got the short hair and his hair is blonde and, but I'd seen where I was stationed in a movie, I saw GI Blues. And here I am at that place. But make no mistake about it, man, being in a tank outfit was way rougher
Tough.
than being in the missile site when I was in the States.
So let's talk about Haight-Ashbury and of course George Harrison. He was in there at that time in '67 or '68, something like that, during the flower years and all that stuff like that. Was Patty Boyd was with him too, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, what happened was, we're playing at a place called the Transaction Inn, right on the corner of 8th and Irving. God, I can't believe I remember that. And it was an old bank, and we're inside playing, and the doorman came up to the stage and he said, stop, stop. Because he was standing at the front door looking out down the street. He said, stop playing. So we did. He said, come outside and look at this. And there was this group of people coming down the street from a distance. And it was George Harrison and Patty Boyd. They were walking up
towards
toward the
Panhandle. Were they in the Panhandle or coming?
Toward Haight Street. And it was,
hundreds.
Unbelievable to see that many people, and they were in front. It's almost like they were leading these people. And
amazing.
That's what that was about, and we never forgot it, because we thought, well, we were going through our hippie thing, which really didn't last too long, thank goodness, because, we got out of that, and we got a manager. We had a great manager over there. So
interesting. In that time period, that's an interesting thing to actually have that going through that process and actually witnessing, again, no footage or anything that you had at all on that either, huh?
Well, I didn't have a camera with me.
Oh, I see. You were actually
no film or anything. I'm just playing the gig at night.
He's telling you.
I didn't even know all this stuff was going to happen.
Wow.
I never knew any of this was going to happen.
No.
There was no phones,
spontaneous,
no cameras, no film or anything. Everything was just going on in life, and it was going fast.
Right.
So, nobody really thought of that,
Amazing, amazing. So then you went to Paramount Movie Set, and you did some things with Three Dog Night, and was it Don Otis or?
No, let me clarify that. There was this lady that came in to the Haight Ashbury Club where we were at the Transection, and she knew this guy named Don Otis, who was working at Paramount, and she wanted him to see us, the trio that I had, we three. And anyway, it was Carl Battaglia, who played bass and keyboards, and then Jerry Garcia, who played drums, and myself. And so we were still working during the day, and they were going to go over to the Embarcadero and meet Don during the day, and I didn't go. So they came back and they said, this guy wants to have a meeting with us, and he's got connections and everything, and he was on the movie set. He's got to be somebody. So he started managing us, and we went in the recording studio and did some recordings. I don't even know what even happened to the stuff.
Really? So you don't have no clue where that's
No,
at?
because Don owned it, but Don had a breakup with his significant other, and I forget. After that, it kind of fell apart.
What were you singing? What kind of music were you doing? Rock, early rock?
I was doing what was on the radio, and rock, heavy rock,
And you have no another case of no, you don't know where it's at, or it's just gone somewhere.
Well, no, there's a bunch of tapes now that are even on YouTube.
Okay.
That were my other band friends. But the thing about Three Dog Night was that my drummer Jerry Garcia said that Three Dog Night, Don knew Lou Adler, and so they were on that label that he had. And what happened was, we thought they were going to ask us to play in the band because we heard that they were
Looking for players.
A problem with the internal workings of the band,
Right.
which was Chuck Negron, it turned out to be the lead singer. He wound up going over the edge, and I think he got beat up even in San Francisco really bad. And so
Interesting.
we found out that they were auditioning singers for his
Replacement.
So Don said, it's not for the band, it's Jimmy, if you want to, audition for that, right? Because I could do the stuff on the radio really well, and that's what I did more than write at the time. So I didn't want to do it, without the two guys that I'd been with from high school and in the Army and everything, and I'm going to leave and go down there, and there was a security in a band at that time, because when you're in a band, it becomes like your family. I was with them more than I was anybody else on earth.
Exactly.
So, but it worked out because we did wind up buying our own nightclub in San Leandro.
Yeah, it was called the Pandora.
The Pandora.
How long did that last?
A couple of years.
Wow. So after all of that, you started doing acts. You started playing around in Jack London Square with. Did you ever play with the Casuals, or play, or were you guys, or not that you guys were rivals or by any means, but did you play with the Casuals? And how Jack London Square was hopping too, big time.
It really was. Well, what happened was, when we bought the Pandora, one of the Casuals, I think it was Gil, called us and congratulated us because we were the only other band beside them that had bought their own nightclub. And But when my trio broke up, when we sold the club, I
Right.
wound up in this band called Friends
Mm-hmm.
with, it was Rick Eitram playing keyboards, it was Manny Perez on bass, Larry Scholes on drums, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we started playing at King Richard's.
Oh,
Jack
wow,
London
what a
Square.
name, man. I remember that club.
And the Casuals had already kind of like, that had changed. That had turned into a kind of like a different kind of club. It
Right.
was after they left, the
It just-
following left.
Right.
So we're there, and we're next door to the Square Apple, you know, and they had a tower there and people like that. But we're playing at King Richard's during the beginning of the dance era.
Mm-hmm.
Of disco, where people really wanted to dance,
Right.
and they wanted that
That beat.
groove and
Right.
that beat, and they wanted to hear the stuff on the radio, and we were there for it. So, but they offered us this thing playing oldies on Sunday night. We were going to do the oldies thing, and they were going to have the Drifters and people like that come in, and we were going to be on the bill with them.
Mm-hmm.
And Butch Wax and the Glass Packs, they were a
Big time.
big time.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was they came to us and said, we want you guys to take the whole radio broadcast and take requests
On the line.
on the line. So
Phone.
we did that, and that's how I wound up with all these recordings
Mm-hmm.
of the radio broadcast, because my mom was home recording me. And some of them, this is really funny, this is worth a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom, you know, is recording stuff and everything, and she's got this 8-track thing before she got the cassette thing, thank
Right.
God.
Mm-hmm.
And the 8-track thing, you'd be listening to a song, and all of a sudden it would click over to the next track.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got some recordings where you're listening, and then all of a sudden it goes right in the middle of a song. You know, that's how that.
But at
that
least you have the memories and you still have the music around.
I got all that stuff.
You really should actually make a CD or a thumb drive or whatever on those stuff, Jimmy. That's really amazing stuff. While we move on, tell me about, you were doing some things in the Sheridan with the Everly Brothers and the Beach Boys. How did that all come about?
Well,
Was that
I
just a
wasn't
gig?
with them. What happened was this. It was like another magical moment.
Mm-hmm.
All the big names would stay at the Sheridan
Mm-hmm.
in Concord, and we had the 5-night-a-week gig.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. So they would stay at the hotel. So this one particular night, I'm up there singing with my bass player, and we're looking this way, and this way is the big glass door,
I know the Sheridan
and
well.
you see the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the people in the Everly Brothers band, they were in there, so we decided to play a couple of Everly Brothers tunes, and so it was funny because my bass player, Manny, said, Jim, like this, real quick. Because we were singing All I Have to Do Is Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the song, I looked over and there was Don and Phil looking at us on the other side of the glass. And I almost like fainted, you know, because these guys are so great.
They were so great.
The next night I came to work, and there was a picture on the top of my amp signed by the Everly Brothers.
I hope
And
you
I
got
still
that.
have it out there. So
There
that
you go.
was that. With the Beach Boys,
Mm-hmm.
that was really funny. They came in the lounge,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in there partying, you know, and drinking. And I think Brian wasn't with them. Bruce Johnson was.
Interesting.
And I'll never forget it because we had done La Bamba, and Bruce Johnson walked up to me and said, "Hey man, can I tell you something?" I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "That was the best version of La Bamba I've ever heard."
Richie
And I said,
Valens.
"Well, I don't know one word that I'm saying, so I just copied it as close as I could. He said, no, can I tell you why I can say that? And I said, because you're Bruce Johnson. He said, well, no, I was the bass player on that song.
The original with.
He played bass for Richie Valens.
Wow.
And I didn't know that, and I almost I couldn't believe it, you know. And then one of the guys in your group was going, hey man, say something about Bruce and Barry Manilow, you know, because they would, I guess they would rib him about it, or they were ribbing him about it, and that was the big song that Barry Manilow, he had written that song. I said, no, I can't do that, man, you know. But they were partying and stuff and drinking, and they said, hey man, you guys are good, and we're having a good time, and you know, so that's what that was about.
These next two guys, Steve Perry and Paul Holgate, I've met them both. I know Paul pretty good, but great musician, by the way, Paul. Journey, Montrose.
What happened was that Paul, who I started out in the business, had a band called Heist, and they were making an album, and I guess Herbie Herbert, I guess the production company that had Journey,
Y&T. And
yeah, they were sponsoring it, and they paid for it, and I went to the record release party at the record plant, and Steve Perry was there, of Journey, right? And everybody's in the room and stuff like that. Well, this was one of those magic moments for me. So I started talking to Steve, and we started talking about blues and about music and everything, right? And we must have stood there for 30 minutes talking about when he was on this particular stage show, and Albert King was on the bill, and who his influences were besides Sam Cooke and everything. And we just chattered and chattered, and it was one of the most, I would say, mind-blowing evenings, speaking to somebody like that, who was so knowledgeable, but such a great singer as well.
He was a great singer. I wish that he would be around a little more. I don't know what the problem is with Steve Perry not actually playing, or, you know, you see him, he comes and goes, got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of years back. Let's talk about you as a Star Search with Don McMahon.
Oh, Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon.
Yeah, I had two people on there. And I wound up being in charge of Star Search auditions for the Bay Area after I got to know them down there. And I was in the hall one afternoon, and right across the hall was Ed McMahon, and the door was open, and there was this big buffet and everything, and I was looking as I was walking out, and he goes, how you doing? I said, fine. I said, wow, that's quite a spread there. He said, you hungry? Come on in and have lunch. So I had lunch with Ed McMahon. I didn't even know him. That's where that picture came from.
Oh, with Ed. That's a great picture of you and Ed.
And that got me in a little easier later on with Universal and Natalie Cole's big break. That was really something. I stayed down there for that.
It's sad that she's gone. She was such a, you know.
She was an amazing singer. This was before the Unforgettable album, you know, with her dad and everything. But she had big names on there, like Whitney Houston. And I've seen all these people. And I'm in there watching them rehearse, because I had two acts that went on there and won. And that's how I got to stay at the hotel. And they said, well, why don't you stick around and, you know, work with people here while you're here.
She's gone too soon. Another person that's gone too soon. You did a thing with, and I've heard this CD. You did a thing with Country Guitar Farm, and you know, tell me about that. And was it with Brad Tower, or who was that?
Well, Brad Gillis.
Oh, it was Gillis?
Yeah, I was on the track with Brad Gillis, and it was great. The Tower Power Horns were on that particular track. And a lot of famous guitar players are on that album. Steve Wolverton produced it, and then he let me and a few other people produce. I produced the only vocal on there.
Really?
Yeah, called My Guitar. And Jim Ziegler wrote it, and then one of my students that I had taught sang lead on it, and then I produced the background vocals, and Jack Blades of Night Ranger mixed it. So I got a chance to produce a little bit on there.
I just seen Jimmy Ziegler, Jimmy Z the other day for Billy London's Celebration of Life over at Rich and Angie's house over there. It was a great thing for Billy London. Let's go. We got a few more questions. I want to get this so that you get. You did a thing with in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You're in a book, and you actually sponsored a huge thing over at Barnes and Nobles. Tell me how was that, and how you really did a lot of work for that.
Well, you were there, man, for that. It was just when the book came out. I got together with Bruce Tossler, who had written the book, and we worked together on it. And I got the Barnes and Noble people to have the book signing.
Right.
And I let you know about it, and a bunch of people, and it became the largest book signing in the history of the place.
Yes.
Well, you were there. It was packed. Rick Stevens was there, Roger Collins, all these people
Lydia.
that were in the book. Lydia Pence.
Roger Collins.
Yeah. It was really,
Huge.
really great.
Huge. We got it on. We actually have that. Let's talk about Sinatra's place.
Well,
You're talking about the Frank Sinatra?
yeah, well, what happened was we went up to Cal Neva. He didn't own it anymore because he had let it go. But we were up there, and we were playing in the main showroom, and that was when I had this Elvis outfit on. I did, I think, 20 minutes of that, and then something else. And the dressing rooms were mind-blowing because they had carved the dressing rooms out of the solid rock in the mountain. Right, because this is like Tahoe, North Shore.
Right.
So you could go down this hallway and stuff, and there were dressing rooms, really elaborate ones. Now this is after Frank had vacated the place, but it had the most incredible light system. When those lights came on me when I was on that stage,
Right.
oh God, it was the greatest feeling I think I ever had, being center stage. But years later, I found out on 2020 with Geraldo Rivera, I think, that the Kennedys and Marilyn Monroe and Frank, they were all hanging out in those back dressing rooms.
Interesting.
And they were staying in the bungalow. And I had
Interesting.
no idea. I told my wife, I said, look, that's the same dressing room I had.
Amazing. Amazing. So what is, as we finish up here, Jimmy, and thank you for letting us come into your great studio, what is the future like for Jimmy? What are you actually still doing now? I know you're producing things at Fantasy. What do you see? What is your next steps? Are you going to perform? I heard some recordings that you sent me, and I know you're recording. Are you going to perform again, or are you just going to teach?
No, actually, what you heard, and all those, if you go to YouTube and type in Jim Bedford, Bobby Schwartz, you can see all the songs that were posted by Bobby Schwartz of my band when I was gigging. The radio shows are on there and stuff. By the way, the song that I'm on Guitar Farm with Brad Gillis is Roadster. Anyway, I just back up my students. The main thing is I'm in this room and I'm writing and I'm producing, and that's why you see all the records all over the walls. With Fantasy, they closed, but it was a great experience being there for almost 30 years. I was working there doing projects, Santana down the hall, Journey down the hall, Earthquake, just all of these great bands, and I would go to work there and produce, you know, when I'm not here. I left Hyde Street for that. But I got to tell you something interesting about Fantasy, one last thing. We were the house band for their Christmas parties years ago. And when Saul Zantz owned it, and this guy David Lucchese and his brother would sit in with us because he was a big producer there. And so that's how I kind of met people like Joey Tarantino You know, so that's how I came back to fantasy, because Jeff Woods noticed how many years I spent there, and he said, Jim, don't go anywhere else. Don't go to San Francisco anymore. Just come here, man. We want you back. So that's how I went back to fantasy.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're closed.
And we were supposed to record there at Blue Voodoo, and also our show was going to record. You had us. We were getting ready to go in there, and then all of a sudden you called me up and said we're closed. But in closing, I'd like to thank Jimmy for letting us come in this beautiful studio with the lights on. I feel like I'm on stage with Jimmy. Jimmy Bedford is a legend in the San Francisco Bay Area. He has taught thousands of students. He's given so many people the opportunity to play on stages that he gets people on. He, to me, is the wisest man on our scene today because he has history and he still has the energy to do things right for other people, but he has the drive of being a musical genius. Thank you, Jimmy. It is a pleasure to have you again. And, you know, God bless you. And, you know, every day is a beautiful day. Peace and love to you, man. This is Gregory Correa with Jimmy Bedford. God bless you all. Love you all.
Thank you.
Peace.